Welcome to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Welcome you here to another inspiring edition where we focus on an amazing individual, nonprofit, or business owner making a difference in Israel. Today, our special guest is the lovely Pamela Becker, who founded and co-founded, and she's also the CEO of a nonprofit in Israel called Jeremy's Circle, which focuses on families and children and teens suffering from cancer. They provide a support system, they provide wonderful events and an ongoing group and place where people can connect, build relationships and friendships, and have the exposure that they need when they're dealing with so many challenges, meeting other people in a similar situation. Pamela will share with us her story. She sadly lost her husband, Jeremy, in which this nonprofit is named in 2008 through cancer when she was young and with 3 kids. So sit back and hear the amazing story of Pamela, what a difference she's making in Israel and how many people's lives and families she and they are transforming. Pamela, welcome to our Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm so happy to have you here. We met just for a brief moment at a conference, and I really loved what you were doing. And I remember saying to you, okay, I've got to have you as a guest on my Monday Motivation Spotlight. So here we are. Welcome. So share with our viewers everything about who Pamela is, life before making Aliyah, what made you make Aliyah, and then we'll lead into Jeremy's story, and of course his illness, sadly, and how you turned a tragedy into purpose by starting Jeremy's Circle.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. So first, thank you so much. I really enjoyed meeting you at that conference, and I appreciate this opportunity to tell my story. And thank you for the interest in it. I live in Tel Aviv. I'm married. I have 5 children, but they're all over 18. The baby is in the army now because the army takes babies now, apparently. So, and now I am a full-time CEO of Jeremy Circle, which is the after 18 years, we'll talk about how it got started. After 18 years of it starting, I was always doing it while working as a full-time in high tech and so forth. And now this is a real luxury to be able to dedicate my full time to the most important cause in my world, I guess, is
Right. Wow. No, that must be so special to be able to dedicate your life literally to this. So you
yes,
made Aliyah in, or you moved to Israel 1994, made Aliyah in 95
yes,
from New York. So
yes.
share with us about Pamela growing up as a child, anything to do, with Judaism, Israel. Were you aware of it?
Okay,
At what stage did you become aware of Israel? And how did you
okay.
meet
So
Jeremy? I'm assuming you met him, or maybe I
I
shouldn't
met
assume. You met him before you made Aliyah or in Israel?
no, we met in Israel. So I'm one of 6 children, 5 girls and 1 boy. I am the shortest of them all, which means I didn't get new clothes until, say, I had a paycheck. And I grew up in upstate New York in a small village where I think population 11,000 at the time, which and we were all my family came my mother was very committed to Jewish education. We were raised, even though we were in an area near Albany, there's a school there, Hebrew Academy of the Capital District. There was a school until high school. My mother was always very more than ritual. She was very committed to Jewish education, Jewish philosophy, Jewish history, that we get that education. So when it came time for high school, like my older sisters, I moved to Manhattan kind of on my own. I lived with my grandparents for a few years, and then at the YMHA on 92nd Street, many New Yorkers are very familiar with, in order to go to a yeshiva high school there and get that modern Orthodox education where, that again, to understand where I came from, kind of thing. Even though at home we weren't Orthodox, um, but to see all sides, going to public school, you definitely saw the kids that weren't Orthodox and whatever. So to see the whole range of ways to practice Judaism. And And I also went to Camp Yavne every summer, which in New Hampshire, which was awesome, which we'll talk about also because it inspired Camp Jeremy. Um, so,
Oh, that's
um,
amazing. That's
so
amazing. You took what you experienced as a child and then wanted to give it to others in a different setting, though.
yes, yes, yes. So the high school I went to Ramaz, which is a very Zionist high school. And I studied creative writing in college, and I struggled as trying to break out as a fiction writer. I published a number of short stories, but when I saw this opportunity to be a writer in residence in a program in Arad, because of the Zionist background, because I knew, enough Hebrew to say things like Anochi Rotza Falafel or something like very very clear. Um, it felt natural to come to Israel and do this project, and I did. And that's how I came to Israel in 1994. I decided, oh, well, as long as I'm here, I might as well get a job and get some international experience. And I started working in advertising. I worked for Gitam BBDO at the time. And I sold my fifth story, which meant that I made a total of $25 total from all my fiction that I've sold. And I realized that if I want to eat and write, I need I better I wasn't discovered. Let's just say that I wasn't discovered, and I needed to find a new another path. So I got my MBA at Tel Aviv University, and that's before it was in English. There were all sorts of I guess I had to learn Hebrew pretty quick because beyond the biblical and into the professional. And my high tech career started soon after. I This was the 90s, so it made sense. Going from high tech company to another. I think the highlight was I was the first marketing person at Iron Source. When I left 3.5 years ago, 3.5 years later, it was 800. There were 30 people when I started. I left, there were 800. So I really felt that that was a place where I kind of not only was tested, as leading the communications for this company, but for a company while in tremendous hyper growth. But the whole idea of scaling up was a tremendous challenge. And and that was my, and I enjoyed a high tech career of about 30 years until COVID. I was home and I realized, oh, so that's what my kids look like during the day.
I
And
know that's the high tech, as we know, comes with many pros and cons. You're putting good food on the table, but family time is often less. We know that.
right, right. Now, listen, I don't have any regrets. We skipped the whole part where I met Jeremy. So, um, I soon after I moved to Tel Aviv, I met Jeremy. Jeremy was a recent immigrant from England, from London, and we had one of his best friends worked with me at BBDO, and we had, it was for us, it was the Israeli dream. He was a strategy consultant. I have to say he was quite brilliant, brilliant. And together, we were building this little family. Zoe was born, and she was one of those babies that you just want to have more. And and then
Right.
Leo was born, and he's like one of the ones, the kind of baby that you're like, then you have to negotiate for more. And and then Gil was born, and we really felt that we were living the dream. We moved into a bigger place. We were working, we were both vice presidents at the same technology company at that point. We were driving to work together. We sat in the same office. It was a very, very happy life. And around the time that Gil was about 6 months, um, Jeremy was going through a series of tests because he was having some trouble swallowing. and it was annoying, and it was getting worse and worse, and nobody knew what it was until finally, after one a gastroscopy. I always confuse how to say it in English and Hebrew.
Right.
Um, the doctor said, you should come into the office, and I want to talk to you. And um, and we knew we were in trouble when we sat down, and the doctor started to cry. I mean,
Wow. Wow.
the tears were
So
going
he had
down
had
his
trouble
face.
swallowing.
Yeah.
I know this is not what our conversation is about, but let's just say a little bit more. Maybe we can help somebody out there who's having a similar thing and to avoid it. Although I know we're talking many years later now.
Yes, I do think that cancer research and treatment have come a long way since then, but it is stomach cancer in young Ashkenazi men is very rare. He's not the profile, and so they thought it was reflux. They didn't take it seriously. They did this test, they did that test, but nobody was stressed out about it. By the time we got to this test, 6 months of test, like 6 months were wasted. Not that I'm whatever, it is what it is. By the time, even if they had discovered it 6 months earlier, it was already too late. That's one of the problems with these with some of these cancers is that when if you have a symptom, it's usually once you have a system that you can see, it's usually too late. Um, but yeah, so so from there, that's when kind of our nightmare started with um within 2 weeks he was in surgery. It was supposed to only take a week. They removed his whole stomach and half of his esophagus, and it was only supposed to be one, or maximum 10 days, but there were all sorts of complications, and he was there for a month. Um, we uh, we we went from hospital to hospital trying to find some kind of treatment because they just wanted to give him palliative care, um, which for a man with a baby, he's a man with he's also he was such a living guy. He was dynamic, he was sporty, he was healthy, and he had three little kids. He wasn't interested in palliative care. He didn't, right? So we
Right,
went,
exactly. He wanted to solve the problem. He wanted to get it fully treated.
so we found a doctor in New York. We traveled quite a bit. We went to all the hospitals in Israel. We went to Boston, then we went to New York, and we found the doctor who was willing to give us a protocol that the doctors in Tel Aviv would work with. But it was brutal. And one of the ways, and this is one of the lessons that we learned, is that one of the ways people could take care of Jeremy, because he had this group of loving friends they were all from Anora Tzioni, that they moved to Israel around the same time. um, the way to take care of Jeremy was to take care of his kids, because he knew what he couldn't do. When I say the treatment was brutal, it was brutal. He was um, he did the chemo weakened him. He weighed he was well under 50 kilos. Um, and he was uncomfortable. He couldn't, swing Leo around the swimming pool. Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of thing that he would have loved to be doing at that time. So when on the weekends, when our friends would come and they would, push 3 booster seats into their little cars, which in itself, you have to say, like, wow, that in itself, just getting the boosters, that's already Dayenu, you know what I mean? If a But they would take the kids with their own families for whatever fun activity they had planned, whether it was a hike or a barbecue, or I mean, there was one weekend they all, we used to always go to this kibbutz or lelim, like all the group together, and but Jeremy wasn't up to it, so they just took our kids, and they had that normalcy and that fun that we couldn't give them at the time, because Jeremy felt awful, and I was focused on Jeremy, and I was I was pretty exhausted
And
this
trying to be a
whole.
mother. And I don't know what happened with you and working during this time as well, but absolutely not easy at all. That's an
Right.
understatement. And
I
and
was
that's really also a message what people can do if somebody's got younger kids to really help and just take the kids out. That's a big, big deal.
This is a message. This is one of my messages that I like I would like to pass on, because a lot of the families at Jeremy Circle say to us, once cancer came into our home, everyone seemed to disappear. A lot of the families say to us that we're their family now, because they didn't know what to say or what to do, or how to act. They just didn't do anything. And I think that's very human, and nobody's to be blamed. But if you're looking for an idea, do you know what I mean? If you're looking for an idea of how to help when you see somebody struggling, when one of the parents is sick, is to help the kids, whether it's to take them out, take them out to McDonald's or whatever it is that these kids like to do, but just get them out of the tension. And if you have your own kids, just bring them along and let them feel normal, instead of just, because at home they're probably being stuck in front of a TV, trying not to disturb the sick parent, trying, and also like trying not to. Sometimes what we see with kids that have tension at home is that they're afraid to be too happy, that it looks bad. Like it's not appropriate for them to be having fun and be silly, because how can you be silly when everybody's not, when everybody's sad or scared or doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So it gives it, it's okay to give kids permission. It's like giving kids permission to be kids. So
Right, that is so important, so important. And I think, I mean, we all know people mean well, but they just don't know how to handle this kind of situation. And I think advice like that is super important. And not to say, well, I'm here if you need any help, but actually to say either what can I help with, or here, exactly, I'm taking my kid out, can so and so come along with
exactly.
us?
Yeah. We're and invite the parents, they don't need to stay home like whatever, but like we're having hamburgers tonight. Do you want to pop over with the kids? If you want, I can come and pick up your kids, because I know that they like playing, I don't know, one of those games. I don't even know. My kids are big now. I don't know what anybody's playing anymore. But with
Right,
my
right. Well,
kids and
actually,
so on and
funny
so
enough,
forth.
some of the games are the same games that we played as kids. I see that with my grandkids. They may call it different names because there's Hebrew names now, but some of the games are exactly the same.
I think
Right,
bananagrams is one of the most amazing things in the world. But okay, so fair enough.
right,
Okay.
exactly. Okay, so moving forward from there to the super challenging time, share with us as you advanced.
So yeah, so another thing that happened that was interesting during that time was I started going to a support group, and um, for other caregivers. And my daughter Zoe, who I've mentioned, who like she's just brilliant and very perceptive, and she's like, there were two things that happened. One, she wanted to come along, so she did
How
come to
old
our
was she at
support
the
group.
time?
6.
6 years
She
old.
came to the
Wow.
support group,
Okay.
and the people were very kind to her. They were very understanding, and they asked really appropriate questions. And it gave her a sense of, she saw that her family is not the only family going through this, because you do feel like you're the only one, and you probably are. If there's a 6-year-old in first, she's there aren't, you're probably the only first grader with a dad who looks like that, and feels like that, and so forth. And she then said she wanted another to meet a girl like her. And so we found her one. And the incredible release it gave them, both these girls, it took a couple months. We found another girl whose dad had chronic cancer, who was her age, just to see eye to eye that there's another girl like you, just that maybe all the details aren't different. This girl was the youngest and not the oldest, and there's this, and she has dark hair, and so he had light hair, blah, blah, blah. But there was another girl and it's normal that it was like you gave them oxygen. Do you know what I mean? You gave them some help to breathe, and this was very important to learn. And so Jeremy took this, understood this, and he was a very, very special person. He saw how lucky he was. This is how he felt. With all was going on, he felt lucky that he had the support system of these incredible friends from his youth movement and his family support him, and he understood. He was smart enough to see that not everybody has that, and it was important to him to give back. And so when we were in hospital, I mean, he passed away in July of 2008, and in June he was hospitalized for a few days with a fever, and his sisters flew in from England, and there's a lot of time sitting in the hospital with not a lot of good things to talk about. And what we decided, what the way we used that time was we built a business plan, because he was a strategy consultant. What do you do when you're bored? Like, you build a business plan. And we built a plan for what Jeremy Circle would be. And
Oh, wow. So he was actually aware of the starting of Jeremy's Circle while he was still alive. You say with
um,
him in it.
he inspired it. Yes, it was very much. He felt very lucky. He knew that what he had on the not on the negative side. He knew that what he had on the negative side was rare and terrible, and I hope nobody else gets it, right? But on the positive side, what he had was rare too and special, and he wanted to give back. He felt grateful to the friends and family. And those are the people who, as you know, after he died, and people's like, oh, we'd like to plant a tree in his name. Is there a charity that he felt most comfortable with? That we said, okay, wait a minute, with the money, we have an idea. We're thinking about this, or about doing something for kids like our kids, and so on and so forth. And the founding people, right, the people who started Jeremy Circle with me and his sisters are those same friends who um, who helped us on the weekends during his illness, and they still come 18 years later. They come to every event. They are on our board, and they're on 87,000 different WhatsApp groups about whether it's branding of Jeremy Circle, or pizza for Jeremy Circle, or whatever. And that's how we started.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm just trying to put myself into Jeremy's head right now, and I'm sure that that gave him also a little bit of a sense, correct me if I'm wrong, a sense of calm that he knew that something good, if you want to call it that, was going to come from this whole unpleasant, tragic, and difficult story.
Um, I'd like to think so. I mean, I'm one of those people, I believe strongly that helping is healing. I think that when you feel a lack of control, giving to someone else helps you take back control, like personal, like it's not like you're being a controlling bad person or something, that it's a weird thing in a weird way. But I think when you feel like you have no control, when you're dying over something that is not, cancer was not a choice. If it had it been, he would have said, no, thank you. But when you're in a place where you have no control, by giving back, that gives you some kind of control by giving to others. And I like to think that this helped him. I hope, it
Right.
certainly
No,
helped.
the
It
the
certainly
fact
helped
that
us.
usually these kind of things, if I'm not mistaken, come up once a person passes. That the remaining people that are grieving for this person, whether it's a spouse, a parent, a sibling, or a child, even if a child's old enough, would start this. But the fact that this whole concept and idea was started in discussion with him, I think is quite unique.
Okay. I'll
I
I
don't know.
accept.
I think it's
Okay.
quite unique. So I think that there is that special lining, I believe, the way I see it coming in as an outsider, the fact that he knew that something good was going to be started because he knew that, that he was sadly dying.
Yeah. Though he was pretty, and he fought it until the last minute. But yes, I don't think he really accepted that he was dying until maybe a few days before. I think he held on to hope. But that was just part of who he
That
was.
was
He was
part of
a
who he is that you've shared
very,
with us, this
yeah,
positive, hopeful, energetic person.
yeah. He 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 was still looking for a way to get out of this, get out of it. But and who knows? Maybe
Right.
maybe science has gotten better, and people like him now would. But that's me.
Right. So now let's share with us, please, for Pamela, for the remaining time that we have. Tell us about the special nonprofit called Jeremy Circle, what your focus is, what you do, and of course, how we can help and how people can get hold of you.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we're now in our 18th year. We started off as just a few families that, we gathered together, um, word of mouth. But now we're 1,200 families, a little bit more than that actually, from Beersheba to Nahariya. We do family fun days where the content is geared for kids up to age 12, but of course, older siblings come too. Um, and things like that will be like a ninja day at a ninja park, or at the botanical garden, a fun day at the botanical gardens in Jerusalem, with special activities incorporated, or uh, a museum, trips to the museum, all our events, because we understand that families that are coping with cancer, and when we talk about, it's not just parents, sometimes there's a sibling, like one of the children in the family has cancer. They don't have all the resources, and it's not just, it includes financial, but it doesn't, but not necessarily. It's the emotional, physical resources to grab your kids, pack a lunch, buy the tickets in advance, drive there, park. Like it's can be overwhelming to anybody. But but exhausted families, worn out with the tension of cancer, more so. So we offer transportation. We offer, if it's a sunny day, they have hats. If there's water, there's pizza. We have a there's snacks when they arrive. There's a light lunch before they go. Um, we make sure that the content is, at, at our level, at a certain standard.
Right, right.
And we basically have a lot of fun. Now, one of the things that our challenges as we've gotten much bigger is how do you keep this kind of intimate feel so the kids are really connecting with each other. So what we'll often do is we'll have, for example, a ninja day or a trampoline park day will be in Haifa, Kfar Saba, and Modi'in all in parallel. So that way nobody's like spending more than an hour on a bus in order to come. Um, and the groups are not so big because if you go to an event and there's 600 people, you're only going to talk to your brother. But if you go to an event where there's 150, 200 people, then you're more likely to connect with the other children. And that's what we're looking for. Now, one of the things that we found that has really glued these children together, if you excuse the expression, is we started, and as I said, inspired in part by my own incredibly positive experience at summer camp in America, Camp Jeremy. And Camp Jeremy this year was 5 days, 4 nights in a youth village near Zichron in the summer, but it's in the hills, so it's not overly hot. And it's a youth village with all the facilities, including a big giant pool, and much nicer sleeping arrangements that we had at Camp Yavne. Sorry, Camp Yavne. And the kids, it was amazing. Like just after a few hours, these kids are walking around in these little groups, like as if they've known each other always. And the connection, okay, the content is great. Yes, camp is fun. It's basically kidland for 5 days. Um, Camp is amazing for everyone, but the connections are really, that they made there are stronger. I can't even stress how important these friendships are. In fact, several of the parents called me to tell me that Camp Jeremy was a miracle for them. One of the moms was saying to me, and I forget how it's called in English, but there's something like, it's like selective mutism that her daughter suffers from, that she, whatever, which of course makes it more difficult for her to make friends, and it's difficult in social situations. But she was able to get connected into this group of girls that they became so bonded that they have a WhatsApp group and they meet several times, like, because it was in July. So since then they've met several times. And the mom came and she was like, okay, it's time to go. I'm gonna whatever. And the daughter said to her, that no, it's okay. I'll get myself home, which this sounds like a nothing, but for this girl, she was like, a miracle happened. This was not a girl that ever got herself home. Um, the growth, the power, the confidence the that these friendships gave these kids, you know, with whatever they're struggling with, because you have to remember, like, especially since October 7th, that it's like, not that cancer isn't a big enough struggle, but these kids have like lots of things on top of them. So if anybody, when October 7th, anybody who was near the edge anyway, like October 7th kind of pushed them a little bit closer. And so all these struggling kids, um, I think it was like a power drink almost. You know what I mean? It was like Camp Jeremy is like if that's a terrible analogy, I apologize, but it gave them these 5 days filled them up with power. And
I know. I can totally identify on the one hand. Listen, as a kid, as a teen, I went to camp, and I know the very positive things that came out. And for this is something where they're having all the fun things of camp, but you're also having these conversations and groups and that kind of thing, group facilitation, which allows them to talk and express themselves and meeting these other kids in a similar situation to them. So it is hugely powerful. I can get that. We can get that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we had with our teenagers, like one of the things that we struggle with is how do you meet the needs of teenagers? Because if they're not going to tell you what they need, obviously, you're totally uncool. Why would they tell you anything? But I mean, I'm joking, but it's always a struggle. And one of the counselors told me, because I was there, right? He's like, listen, it was after lights out, and I heard a noise, so I went in and I saw that all like the older kids, they were all sitting in a circle, sharing. So I just
Oh,
left them.
that's wonderful. That is so
I, ju-
wonderful.
so I,
So
I just I just
what
told
are
them
the
just to
average
keep.
ages? What are the average ages of the kids that you run these kind of events for? And you also have, I know you have family days, but what are the ages? And do you have separate events for the adults, for spouses, or for
So
siblings?
So our focus is on the children and the teens. We know that when you take care of people's children, that we're taking care of them. And we also see the connection, like at the last Hanukkah event. It's the same parents that helped last year. Like they also have a form of connection. It's a community. They support each other in a beautiful way. But so we have the family fun days. The content is really geared for kids up to 12. Like I said, just because otherwise we'd be all over the place. And you can't always. Sometimes it's geared for kids who are a bit younger, sometimes older. We try and make sure read like areas and whatever. We try and do a nice mix so that everybody's needs are met. We do teen only events because teenagers in families where there's cancer or cancer loss, often they're given a lot of responsibility, a lot more responsibility. One told me that, she was 13 when her 15-year-old brother was this was 10 years ago, was diagnosed, and she said that was the day when he was diagnosed. That was the day her childhood ended because she then became the parent, like whatever, like the not really parent of the 5-year-old. Well, and now 10 years later, the 15-year-old who's now 25, his life, he was able to blossom. It took her a lot longer to kind of get past it and find her way because she didn't have that. All the resources were put on saving him, which is fair. Um, but so our teen events, we don't invite the parents, we don't invite the younger siblings. We want them to be just teens. And then we have camp, which is 5th to 12th grade, and we encourage the older kids to come back as counselors. And
Which I
that's what
think
we
is
do.
great in itself because then they're seeing themselves in a different role and they're also transforming.
Yeah, yeah. It is beautiful to see. In fact, we have one of our super volunteers, I call him. He was he was a Jeremy Circle kid 15 years ago. He knew my kids very well. And when his mother fell ill again, he came back 15 years later. First thing he did was come back to Jeremy Circle as a young adult, coming back to this community where he belongs and where he
He
can
belonged and where he
work.
gained so much. And I think through that, you can see the amazing work that you are doing, the fact that they choose to come back.
Yeah, and he's lovely, and he's really. Google Sheets
Wow,
they're gorgeous
Pamela, we
because of
could
him.
carry on talking for a long time. I'm sure there's a lot more that you can share. How can people get involved? How can people either volunteer? How can people donate? Can you give your URL? Some people will be
Okay.
watching it right now. Some are listening, some are watching.
Well, we'd love money. We'd love it if you donated. Just go to jeremycircle.org. It's spelled just the way it sounds, but also you can Google Jeremy Circle or Hama'agal Shel Jeremy in Hebrew. Um, we are always looking for volunteers at our events. We have about 12 in real life events each year. Other
What type
ways
of volunteers? If you're looking for volunteers, what type of volunteers? Do they need to be specialists in something or just anyone
we're
for extra hands?
Any just to help out with the registration of the kids and make sure things are going smoothly, just another pair of hands to make sure everybody gets their 2 slices of pizza before somebody else gets a third, that kind of volunteer. But actually, right now, we're also on a campaign looking into our community because of Camp Jeremy. We want the content to be really awesome. That if is there anybody out there that that could do like a workshop? We split the kids up in age groups of like fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth, ninth, and then high school. If somebody has a workshop that they do that they would like to give to these kids during camp, we would be grateful. If there's any other way think they can support us at camp, we would be super grateful.
Right, we will definitely talk about that afterwards. I wanted to hear your full story, and I have a suggestion regarding that too. Wow, Pamela, thank you so much for sharing with us your story, Jeremy's story, the special person that Jeremy was, which gave us a little bit of outside information to get to meet Jeremy, who we sadly never got to meet. You're doing amazing stuff. Jeremy's Circle is doing amazing stuff. So keep on doing the wonderful work that you're doing. Besort Tovot, obviously, we should have only good health, and you should be zocher to continue doing the wonderful work that you are doing. To our viewers, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Thank you to our sponsors, to Egan & Cohen Insurance and to Lali's Flower Boutique in Jerusalem. If you enjoyed this episode, if you found it inspiring, please subscribe, please follow, whether you're listening to it on whichever podcast format or platform you do. We've had other very inspiring speakers. Not everyone has the same story. Everyone has a different story. And today we've been privileged to listen to the story of Pamela Becker and Jeremy in Jeremy's Circle. Thank you for joining us. See you next week on the Monday Motivation Spotlight.